Heat is on. We don't need to tell you that. And, of course, school starting just around the corner. A lot of football teams are practicing. Bands are meeting right now. How to stay cool and safe in this Texas heat. We have a lot of transplants in the area, folks who did not grow up here and might not know just how seriously it can get in the heat. We talked with Dr. Fahmi Farah. She's a medical expert and a board-certified invasive cardiologist here in DFW. How hot is it? Too hot to be outside for a considerable amount of time?
I would say anything above 95 degrees would be considered pretty hot. And in summer months, in certain areas, for example, in Texas, it's routinely above 100 degrees Fahrenheit over summertime. So that would definitely be considered too hot to be exposed for prolonged periods of time in the outdoors.
Yeah, and that's the other factor is how long are you going to be outside? Because right now we already have high schoolers practicing for football season coming up. I have 2 kiddos in band at the high school level, and they're already doing their camps, and they're going to be out in the heat. What practical tips do we have for them to stay safe?
I think hydration is going to be key for them, making sure that they're getting adequate rest time in between practice and that they're hydrating well.
I want to make sure everyone heard this. Pre-hydration?
Pre-hydration as well, yes. So before even they go to the field, hydrating with electrolyte drinks such as Gatorade, and in between practice, that they take frequent breaks for hydrating and maintaining that throughout their practice.
Yeah, and I know it's different when we're talking about small children and the elderly. Now, I remember when my 2 were little bitty, 2 little bitty boys who want to be outside all the time, but August would roll around and I would have to tell them, guys, it's too hot to even be outside right now. We'd have to think of creative things to do, go to the library or go do fun things indoors. Why are children so susceptible to falling ill or possibly even dying from heat exposure?
Children, they don't have as much reserve as adults do. They can collapse quite fast. And, heat stroke, contrary to what most people believe, it actually doesn't take that long. The exposure period doesn't have to be very long at all. And when that hyperthermia kicks in, which is your body loses its cooling mechanism, and so the body temperature, the internal temperature rapidly rises, and that's when people can get into situations like heat stroke. And children, it can happen a lot faster just because they're just not able to sustain that kind of heat for as long as an adult would.
For sure, and that totally makes sense. What are the pivotal moments to pinpoint if you yourself or someone near you is experiencing heat stroke symptoms?
There will be some warning signs, and those would be fatigue. If you start to see somebody just not looking as energetic, more fatigue, they can have symptoms of dizzy spells, and sometimes chest pain and shortness of breath can kick in too. But mostly nausea, vomiting, dizzy spells, all of those are warning signs to get yourself quickly out of that heat exposure and seek help.
All right, and what do we do? Let's say we're the ones experiencing this, or we're watching it unfold right in front of us. What is the very first thing we need to do?
The very first thing would be to remove yourself from the outdoors and that heated area and start cooling yourself by using a cooling blanket or water or something like that to cool yourself off and call for help.
Dr. Fahmi Farah, we appreciate your time with us on WBAP this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.